Good day. Welcome to another lesson on our Entrepreneurship Master Program. Today we're looking at the skills program supply chain. And we're looking at the module how to manage your production process. So we started with the module on introduction. We did the case studies. We did the demand management. We did acquisition. We did logistics. So now we're looking at the production process. So with demand management, we looked at the customer's need and how you meet the customers and how you're supposed to manage their demand so that you can decide on the type of product that you need to procure, the operational process that you need to implement. And we look at the acquisition in terms of being strategic acquisition. When you're buying your products, your raw material, or your finished product, if you are in a retail business, then you need to make sure that you buy in a way that it gives you competitive advantage. So it's on acquisition. And on logistics, we looked at the transportation of your products. It might be either from your supplier to your operation, and from your operations for finished goods to your customer. That's the logistic part. If you are transporting those goods and services, so you need to make sure that you implement the most efficient logistic strategies so that you can be as efficient as possible during those processes. And now today we're looking at how you manage production. And maybe as a way of introduction, what is production? Production it will be the process where you converting raw material into the final product. Or if you are not manufacturing, it's a process where you are making your product available to consumers. If let's say it's a retail store, your production process will be the store. How do you manage the store? How do you do the stock? How do you do the stock taking? And how do you decide how much products or the stock that you need to keep on the floor? And the selling process, are you setting up a physical store or are you doing an online store? So the production process doesn't necessarily mean where you're actually producing goods and services like in a manufacturing setup. Yes, in a manufacturing setup, production is how you produce goods and services. Maybe in farming, it will be the planting process and the harvesting and the storage and the delivery of the product will be part of logistics. And then in the retail environment, it will be that once the products are delivered in your store, how you make them, how do you make them available to your customers? That would be your operational or the operations process. And in a service business, the operations is limited. It's when you're actually providing the service. Let's say you are in training. With a training business, the operations start when you start facilitating the lesson to when you're doing the assessment and you're doing the certification. So that will be your operation. It will be the operational process. As I said, that with supply chain, the most important thing is you need to know that supply chain is about making your business as efficient as possible. So that one, you can make profit, two, you can be competitive out there. We know that almost all industries are very, very competitive. There are few industries that you have monopolies. I mean, you have your ESCOM that have a very strong monopoly. And sometimes you have the banks that are not the competition, like we have 4-5 big banks. So they're just competing amongst themselves. It's not as competitive as maybe Spaza Shop. If you look at the Spaza Shop, they are popping everywhere. And it's not only the Spaza Shop, even the big retailers are coming into the market. So it becomes a highly competitive environment in Spaza Shops and many other sectors. I'm just giving the Spaza Shop as an example because it's an easier example. You can see them in townships, you see them everywhere. But that environment is then, when the environment is highly competitive, like the Spaza Shop environment, then the margins become razor thin, where you need to make sure that your processes are as efficient as they can be. Because if you are not efficient, then you won't be competitive. And we know that in the spaza shop space, most people are not buying for quality. They are buying for price. They want the best price possible. So if you are not efficient, you lose customers to competitors that are more efficient, or those who are managing their processes much better than you. And okay, I must admit that it's not only your operational process, it's how you manage the demand, it's how you manage the logistics, it's how you do your procurement, as well as how you monitor and evaluate your operations. That will give you a competitive advantage, or it will give you a chance to be more competitive in the space that you are operating in. So when it comes to the production process, let's say you are in manufacturing, you need to make sure that how you design your organization, you design it in the most efficient way. And then, but you can also use the example from the McDonald's, how they design their restaurant. They made sure that, okay, they customize the equipment that they are using in their store. Customization makes it easier to produce the products the way they want the products to be produced, not be forced by equipment that were designed to produce product in their own way. So by customizing your equipment, you are able to produce the product the way you want them to be produced, the quality that you want. So that's what the McDonald's brothers did. But it doesn't mean you have to do the same, because some industries it's not possible for you to customize your equipment. It's not possible for you to customize the operating system. So some industries you have to accept that that's how it is. Like, I don't know, like your service station, the petrol pumps, depending on which franchise you took, you can't pump your fuel differently because you need to meet their standards. You might have a creative way that maybe you don't have petrol attendants. People can come and pour like the Americans do, but the system is not that conducive, because unless you are a white site, but if you are a franchise site, there are certain standards that you need to make sure that you comply with to maintain the franchise agreement. So there are certain operations that you can't be innovative where you just overhaul your operation process. You can't be to a Billy Bean like what he did at the Auckland A's, where he just changed completely how they do their recruitment process. Because he was a standalone business, he was allowed to be innovative, and the industry allowed him to do that. He could still change how he does things and still be in compliance, right? And for example, we are in a training space. Yes, we have technology, now we're doing online classes, but if you are providing an accredited course, you still have to comply with certain basic standards from your sitters. You still have to facilitate in a certain way. Students or learners, they still have to spend a certain amount of time in class, and they still have to be assessed. And you still have to be able to approve that you have assessed the learners, because now they have not moved with times where they allow online assessment as a valid assessment, because sometimes they need to do the site visit and they can't do the site visit online, and because they don't have the technology to assess your online assessment, then it might become a challenge. So there are certain things that you can do within certain limits in certain industries. So even though like we encourage entrepreneurs to find a creative and innovative way to improve their production process, it's not always possible to come with new innovation, because there are certain industry standards that you still have to comply with. But if there are no industry standards that you have to comply with, or your innovation still meets the industry standards, then you are good to go. That's what successful entrepreneurs do. Right. McDonald's was successful because they did things differently than the other businesses in the sector. Their operations is top notch, is very efficient. So when the brothers were redesigning the store, they made sure that their employees walk limited steps for them to produce an efficient line, so that they don't move from here to here. You find that your setup or your production process, it doesn't flow the way it's supposed to flow. So you need to make sure that if you're setting up a production process, you need to read the industry, how is it doing things, and then look at the best way or best practices to implement the same thing but in more efficient way. Remember, there are ISO standard out there for manufacturing institutions. The things that you need to follow. There are six sigmas that you can follow. So different industries have different standards that you need to comply with, and they also have different quality management systems that you can utilize as an entrepreneur to develop the most efficient production process. Because if you are not efficient, then you'll be leaving money on the table. And if your competitors become more efficient, then they will run you out of business. So the production process is critical for your survival as a business. I know in the chicken industry, like if you want to a broiler house, you need certain number of chickens or chicks so to be profitable. You can't run a broiler house with maybe, let's say, 1,000 chickens. You need to have a bigger house so that you can meet all the cycles in that space. Because if you have smaller quantities, you might not be as efficient as you should be. And we know that that industry is very competitive. So you need to design your operation in a way that it meets the industry standards. Because, as I said, in the broiler house, if let's say you have a house that is how you can house 1,000 chickens, and compared to another house that can do 40,000 chickens, now you can't compete, because one, buying feed, you have to go to a normal wholesaler. But if you're running a 40,000 house, you can buy directly from the manufacturer. Then it makes a difference in terms of the cost. The cost that you will be paying for buying from the wholesaler and the price that you'll pay for buying from the manufacturers are totally different. And in that space, every cent counts, because you are competing with imports from your Brazil, your USA. They are dumping their chickens in South Africa. So if you are not efficient, then you wouldn't be able to compete, because ultimately people are paying for the price is based on the kgs. It's the price per kg. So if, let's say, you can sell for 70 rand per kg, and the market is selling for 70 rand, and your production process doesn't allow you to reduce the cost to make you profitable at 70 rand per kg, then you are out of business, because there's no one who will buy for more than 70 rand per kg if the market out there is offering chicken at 70 rand per kg. And with the chicken process, you also need a person. Remember, if you have a 40,000 house and you have a 1,000 house, the involvement, the people that are involved in the process, you might still need the same number of people. So you might have 3 people looking after 1,000 chickens and 3 people looking after 40,000 chicken. That means cost per chicken on your labor cost, it's higher than the guy who's running a 40,000 house, because cost per labor or cost per kg is become cheaper. So when you're designing your operational process, you need to make sure that you design it in the most efficient way. Even the capacity, because there's a term called economies of scale. The higher number of products that you produce, or the higher the capacity, the lower the cost. And the lower the capacity, the higher the cost per product. Because if you are able to mass produce, then you are able to drop your production cost massively compared to if you are customized or if you have a limited output. Yes, there are industries that you need maybe to customize your product, like Rolls-Royce. It doesn't mass produce, it's produce specific, and their cars are custom made, their seating is manually or hand crafted. But if you look at Toyota, it's mass producing because their customers are more interested in the price, while the Rolls-Royce customers are more interested in the quality. It doesn't mean you must always be mass producing. You can produce limited products, but obviously they must fetch a higher price compared to the mass produced products. So we know, like, the Rolls-Royce price and compared to Toyota price are totally different, because Toyota's operation is mass production, while Rolls-Royce is customized. So you need to decide which one are you going with, because you can't have a customized low output operation where you're going to sell at a mass market price. That model will not work. So when it comes to the operational process, you need to design your operational process the best way you can. That's why now, even with China, in our textile sector, you buying the raw material locally and processing it locally, it's still more expensive. Like, the raw material will cost you more than the final product from China. Let's say you're manufacturing jeans. If you buy the material locally, the cost of the material will be more than the cost of a complete jean from China, because China have mastered the art of mass production. Okay, yes, they have abuse of labor and stuff like that, and using child labor, those practices that are not ideal. Yes, but apart from those practices, they've managed to master the concept of mass production. And with that mass production, they are able to export their product cheaper. And remember, if you are mass producing, that means you are able to negotiate prices with the suppliers. And the production process, it becomes cheaper to produce because you're just running the factory non-stop. But if you are customized, you customize your operation. You need to run, stop, do this, adjust this, stop. So the guy will be producing 1,000 jeans an hour. You'll be producing maybe 2 jeans an hour. And you can't expect to compete with the guy who's producing 1,000 jeans per hour while you're producing 1 per hour. The cost just doesn't make sense unless you need to segment the customers that you are servicing. So now it goes back to your demand to say, what type of customers are you servicing? Are you servicing high-end who are looking for customized product, or are you servicing the mass market? If you're servicing the mass market, you need mass production so that you can be competitive when it comes to price. Okay, and then going back to my chicken example, if you're running a broiler house, then it's either you're doing the Woolworths way, where they don't buy mass-produced thing. So if you are producing organic products, then you can fetch a better price in the market. You might, in terms of pricing, you might not be competing with the guys who are mass producing. So you need to be able to analyze your demand in terms of the customers that you are servicing, analyze your sourcing, how you'll be able to source the raw materials that are needed in your production process, and the logistic wise, and then you'll decide on which operation you're going for. Because if you can access mass market, you can access you can strategically source your products, and you have efficient logistics, then now they're guiding you to say you can set up a mass production operation. But if you have maybe high-end customers and you need to the sourcing, yes, you can strategically source the quality material, and maybe the logistics is a little bit complicated. It's not an easy logistics in terms of delivering the product to the customers or from the raw material. Then you can customize your production process. So there's no one size fit all when it comes to setting up your production. It depends on a lot of things, but mainly it depends on the customers that you are servicing. If you are servicing customers that are looking for price, then you need to make sure that you are as efficient as you can. You are able to mass produce because your customers are looking for price. They're interested in the price. And if your customers are looking for quality and maybe differentiation, then you will be able to sell at a higher price to those customers. So you can customize your operation process in that way. And maybe going back to, let's say for a spaza shop, remember, as I said, that people who are buying from spaza shops, they're not necessarily looking for high-end organic stuff. Okay, there might be, maybe you can set up an organic spaza shop, but generally the spaza shop market is to provide people with convenience. Okay, yes, with convenience, sometimes people are willing to pay higher prices for convenience. It's like the prices that you see at the service stations, right? They charge crazy prices, but they're charging those crazy prices because they're not targeting people who are just coming to do grocery there. It's for people who are traveling, they're on the road, they just want maybe a quick bite, or they just want something to snack. So because they don't have alternatives, they can't now, no, I'm not buying here, I'll go to Pick and Pay, wherever. I might find this further down the line. Because you are providing them with convenience, you are able to sell at a higher price. So you can set up your operation in that way to say, what are you selling? Are you selling convenience? Are you selling quality? Or are you just selling products? You're just making it accessible to the market. So now, if you're setting up a production process for convenience, yes, then it gives you that leeway to say you can customize it, make it special, and you can sell it for better prices, or you can rent it out for better prices. It's like even in the hotel industry. It's either you're servicing the masses or you're servicing call it the elite, the high end. Yes, the high end. With the high end, obviously the service and the setup and the environment and the ambience needs to be different from your it used to be Formula One, I don't know what they call it now, Sun One or something like that. Those two are different because they're servicing different markets. If you go into Sun One, find like maybe even the sheets are brown and all that. But if you go into a high-end hotel, the sheets are white, the service is better, you have access to certain things, their amenities are there, you have a gym and all those things. Because you are paying high prices. They are able to customize the service. They are able to provide you with a quality service. And then at San Juan, it's just for people to come in. They might just want to rest for a few hours and move on. So they don't want to pay the high prices. And it goes with the service that it comes with. So people, depending on the type of operation that you want to depending on the demand from your customers or the type of customers that you are servicing, how you set up your operations becomes different. The things that you do within your operations, they're supposed to be different, right? So you shouldn't fall into that trap, which I've seen many entrepreneurs do, where the price is for mass market, but they're trying to give the quality product for a high-end market. You will be spending money in operations. You'll be less profitable. Because if you're servicing mass market, make sure that you put an operation that is designed to service mass market. If you are servicing a high-end market, you can have the operation that is suitable for high-end market. You can look at, even if we use maybe retailers as an example. When you walk into USave, the environment is different to when you walk into a Woolworths. You can see the difference. The shelving, the cleanliness, the approach, the service that you receive from the cashiers, how the product are packaged. They're different because they know that for customers that are willing to pay premium prices, we need to give them premium service. And for customers that they just want to pay the cheapest, we need to give them the cheapest service. That's the reality of it. So I've seen many entrepreneurs trying to give customers the customized and special kind of service, but for the mass market price. You might survive, but you wouldn't be as efficient as you should be. So what I'm saying is that you need to analyze your demand, because production process is not a standalone. You need to analyze your demand, the type of customers that you're servicing. It doesn't matter which industry you are in. It's important for you to understand the demand and be able to manage that. You need to understand your logistics. How are you going to make the product available from? So logistics, you look from the supplier to the customer receiving the product. Logistically, can you be efficient? And you look at the strategic procurement. Can you procure strategically? When you look at those three items or the three activities within your business, then it will guide you to the type of operation that you need to set up. Are you setting up a Rolls-Royce type of production process, or are you setting up a Toyota type of operation process? And remember, when you're setting up your production process, and sometimes as entrepreneurs we are obsessed about quality, right? We always think customers are looking for quality products. No, customers are looking for consistent product. If you provide them with consistent product and they know what you're supplying them, there will be some customers that will like that product, and there will be some that will not like the product. So once you provide them, so once your operation provide your customers with consistent product, then the customers will be able to come and buy that product. Or not. There are some who might not buy but they'll know what they are not buying. So you don't have to always provide quality product. Like now, coming to the spaza shop, let's say your Pakistanis, they're selling products. They know their customers are the ones who want to buy cheap products. They're not confused. They're not trying to be your Woolworths. They're not trying to be your shop, your Checkers. They just want to supply their customers the product. If there's a low, whatever quality product that they can find that is cheap, they'll sell it to their customers. And even the customers, when they go to your spaza shop, like your foreign-owned spaza shop, your Pakistani spaza shops, they're not going there looking for organic chicken or organic stuff. They're just going there to buy what they need, and they know they're going to get the best price. Right, and they have their customers, and on the other side, there are people who say they wouldn't buy from those spaza shops because they know sometimes they can sell them fake products. And you don't have to target everyone with your operations. When you're setting up the operation, know the type of customers that you're targeting, and set up your operation that will meet your customers' demand. Not necessarily be politically correct and say I'm providing the most high-end quality products, but your customers are the mass market. So you need to be able to differentiate the two and strategize in how you set up the operation. Okay, so as I've said, that there are different customers looking for different type of product. You'll see, like sometimes you have a shop where they're selling poor quality, maybe food, like your Greek fast food where like they're selling you old chips, right? But because some days you want those old La Lille chips, you'll go to that restaurant. And sometimes you just want maybe, I don't know, your McDonald's type of chips. Then you'll go to McDonald's. But you know what you'll be getting when you go there. You're not looking for quality. You're just looking for that taste that you might be preferring. And at McDonald's, you're also looking for a different taste. And they'll have their customers, and McDonald's will have their customers. And then you know that, okay, you have the McDonald's, you have your Steers, which is a little bit more expensive than McDonald's. Still, Steers has its target market. Doesn't mean because McDonald's product are a little bit cheaper, Steers doesn't have the customer. They still have their customer. So now you should be able to differentiate the type of customers that you are servicing, right? And you can even taste in there, maybe it's just my taste buds, but you can taste the difference between the patty from Steers is different from the patty from McDonald's. You can almost taste the Steers patty is more meaty than the McDonald's patty, because the McDonald's patty is about mass production, and that even though the Steers is also mass production, but because they have limited stores and they're servicing a different customer market, their burgers or their patties is a little bit meaty. So now, deciding on the type of product that you'll be supplying or the type of customers that you'll be servicing, it influences the type of operation that you need to set up. So that's the lesson on that, to say you need to be driven by the demand, by your customers. So how you set up your operation, the type of operation that you set up is guided by the demand from your customers. Okay, that being said, even though you are guided by the customers, you still have to set up your operations in the most efficient way. Meaning, you need to make sure you understand each activity that is going on within your operation and see how best you can maximize on each activity. So in overall, you are saving time, you are improving on speed, and you are reducing your cost. So must be your focus, to say your operation must be, one, cost effective. It must be efficient when it comes to the resources, and it must provide speed in terms of the production process. It must be quick. It must be in and out, because speed, the longer you process things, the more cost you're gonna incur, right? And then with speed, it also in relation to the stock, the raw material that you bring in, you mustn't hold high stock levels. You must not have high stock levels. You must just have enough to run your operations, because if you have high stock levels, you're running the risk of theft, your product going obsolete. But most importantly is stock is cost. So if things are sitting in your storeroom that you're going to use in a year's time, that money you could have put in the operation and it would have given you better returns. So you need to make sure that, when I'm saying you need to make sure that your operations is efficient, it's not only on the actual operation activities, but you look at the whole supply chain in terms of storage or warehousing. How much stock do you keep in warehouse or in your storeroom? And then how much stock of finished products do you want to keep? Because that now is your operation process. Make sure that you have enough so that you don't frustrate the operation process, but you must not have more than enough, more than you need, because that costs money. And then on the other side, you must not produce far more than you need. You must produce sufficient products or outputs to meet your customer needs, so that your operation process is as thin as it could be, as efficient as it could be, because that's important. That makes the difference between you being successful and failing. So when it comes to the operation, you need to make sure that you understand your customer needs, you understand your process flow, you analyze each and every activity to see how can you optimize it. Because without optimizing your production process, you might not be able to be competitive out there with price. And without optimizing your operational processes, you might not be able to provide your customers with consistent quality product that they expect from you. So consistency of production, it becomes very, very important when you are setting up the operation. It might be a spaza shop, it might be a training, it might be a consulting, it might be a manufacturing, farming operation. Make sure that you understand all the activities that goes into you producing your final product. Look at how you can optimize them in terms of the process. Make your production process as short as possible. Make sure that it costs you less than your competitors, and make sure that the quality that comes out of that production process is that of quality. All right. So sometimes when you're a startup, you might, because we all have dreams. We just want to set up a big factory where we're doing the production. But sometimes it's not always necessary for you to set up the operating process or build an operation plant from the beginning. You can start by outsourcing your operation process. Like if you are selling clothes, instead of setting up a production factory, you rather import from China initially, or Turkey, or wherever that makes you happy, or they have the product that you're looking for. So you start by importing, which now it doesn't need heavy investment when it comes to startup cost. You just need to buy a limited stock, and then maybe if you need a showroom, you just maybe hire a showroom, or if you're going online, you don't even need a showroom. Then you start servicing that market. So that you start understanding how that market behaves. And as you servicing that market, you gain experience in terms of what are they looking for, what do they prefer, how do they want to be serviced. So that when it comes to setting up the operation, you know how to set up the operation to meet the demand from the customers that you would have proven. And setting up a big factory without proven customer records is also a difficult one, unless you have your own money to set up the operation process. Then you can do whatever that you want. But if you want to go raise funding for it, then the funders will ask you about the market that you are going to service. Yes, you could have done your market research and feasibility studies and all that. Sometimes that is not good enough, because we know the funding system or the financial system in South Africa is not pro-entrepreneurs. It's difficult to source funding as an entrepreneur. So what you need to do to limit your frustration, to say before you set up that massive operation process or operating plant, you need to maybe outsource the production process to maybe China or wherever, Pakistan, wherever that you can find reliable suppliers. Then you service your market, and as you service your market, you learn the supply chain process, you learn the logistic part, you learn the way you can source better and what the customers are looking for. And you'll have proven record. Even when you say, now I want to set up my own factory, then when you're approaching funding institution, you say, no, I need to set up the factory that needs to have 1, 2, 3 equipment, because I have feedback from my customers. They say they are looking for 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll be able to even show the advantages of you setting up your own factory versus you importing the product from wherever that you're importing them, or buying it from the third party. You'll be able to show the difference in the money that you'll make from you setting up your operational process. I suggest that, because you don't have your own funding, but setting up your own production process in most cases is always better than outsourcing, because outsourcing is a little bit expensive, because you're getting final products and they want to make a profit on it. And when you sell to your customers, you also want to make profit. But it might be appropriate for you, rather than setting up the operation, because you don't have the money, so you rather take the thin margins as you're building up your operations and understanding the industry that you are going into. Because before you start, you might think that you know the industry. And then once you go into the industry, when you are on your own, it becomes a different ball game altogether. Looking at the industry from the outside, it looks easy, it looks doable, but once you go in, it got its own challenge. So they've got their own challenges. Different sectors, different industries, you're going to get challenges. So you rather have challenges with minimal investment. And in business trainings, they call it a minimum viable product. So when you start your operations, you don't have to put a Rolls Royce of a factory. You can go with what they call minimum viable product. So you set up a small, not small in size necessarily, but in investment. But it can do what you want it to do. So you invest minimal, maybe the equipment is not the high end, it's not the big ones, but you set up small so that you can go out and test the market. And there's no, okay, there can be better minimum viable product model out there. But the most efficient one and easy one is when you're setting up, you're outsourcing your operation process. So you need to understand the operation. If you outsource, you need to understand that you're outsourcing to a reliable supplier that you can build a good relationship with. And you use the products that they're giving you to test your market and understand the demand, understand the logistics, understand the behavior, the patterns within that industry, how your customers behave. And from there, when you feel that it's time, your supplier cannot meet your needs anymore, you have more customers than you ever dreamt of, then you set up your own operations, because you know what is required, how to set it up, the legislative compliance and all that you would have learned by practically implementing the project using by outsourcing. Then you set up an operations, then you will be ready to roll and you'll access funding easier. Okay, now let's talk about the functions of production management. One, you need to look at the product design. We spoke about the setting up of the production process, take into account the customer demands, take into account the logistics, take into account the strategic acquisition to say, can you get the material and the type of material that you'll be getting through. That's the first part, right? And the second part, you look at now the product design. Because you would have looked at your customer demand, the material that you can get, and the logistic part. Then you need to design your product the best way possible. Meaning, if your product is gonna be involved in the maybe long delivery processes in terms of logistics, then you must make the packaging maybe durable if you are manufacturing products. And if, let's say, it requires storage, it's heavy, so you need to be able to design it in a way that it can be easily handled by the customers. So on the design, even if it's service, let's say you are doing accounting services or whatever consulting services, you might design your product offering or your service offering maybe as a package instead of offering. Yes, you can still offer them individually, but when you're designing your approach to market and how you provide the service, it might include maybe accounting goes with the tax advice, maybe, or tax services, doing the SARS thing, and maybe submitting documents to your Department of Labor, and consulting maybe on the payroll, running the payroll for your clients. So you might set up in a way that when you approach clients or when you recruit clients, you offer them a package of maybe tax consulting, management consulting, accounting, SARS completion of the documents, and maybe labor issues, submitting your UIF and such things. So you might design it in a way that you make it cheaper for your customers to take the product as a service. So in that way, the people that you recruit must be experts in this, so that when they go to the client, they are able to provide the full service instead of maybe having a tax expert and having maybe a management consultant, having an accountant, and having maybe a tax practitioner. or maybe having a labor expert. So you can either design your business to have these experts or to have more generalists who know a little bit about each, because you are not offering specialized services. You're offering mass production, as I can call it in the operational term. So, and then, but if you are servicing like a big corporates, their tax matters are complicated, so they'll want tax specialists. They don't want a general dealer there. If now, and then there are management accounting in terms of advice on strategy and all the strategy is complicated to have a general dealer doing that for them. And accounting might be a specialized system. You might want somebody who knows maybe SAP, they're processing on SAP or SAN accounting, or the one who need pastel evolution. So you might need an expert in specific software rather than a generalist, right? Even on the labor issues or labor experts, you might need somebody who has strong knowledge of labor relations, because maybe there might be bargaining councils and unions that are involved. But if you are targeting simple organizations, you might have your generalist that can go and service your customers. So in that setup, this is different. In one, where you're providing customized services, you need 5 specialists, right? And in the generation, you can have 2 people who are doing everything, and it's different. Their rate will be different. The time that they spend with the customers will be different, because the specialist one, they know they need to go deeper, but the general services, you just provide high level services. So now that's how you design your products. You need to know the market that you are servicing so that you can design your product the best way possible. Yes, you can combine the two still, where you have specialists and you have generalists. It can still work. Even in manufacturing, you can have organic products and mass production product. So you can design them that way. But you need to take your market into account to say, how do I design my products the best way possible so that you can service your customers in the most efficient way? So that's how you look at that is the function of production management. And then again, another function of production management is on the planning side and control side. You need to plan your production and you need to control it, because you need to control quality. You need to make sure that the production is planned so that the resources can be ready. You don't just start, maybe if you are you are running a spaza shop, there must be certain things that can be done. There must be operating hours. You might start at 8, finish at 8 at night. It might be your operating hours. Those are the control mechanism. The banking might be done a certain way. The cash register might be done in a way. Are you taking cash? Are you taking cards? Is it a supermarket where people can pick and pay, where they can walk in and pick the stuff that they're looking for and pay, or you stand at in front there, then they can point, I want that, I want that. That as well, I mean, it works. Most spaza shops, you don't walk in and pick stuff and pay, because call it crime in villages or in black communities is a little bit higher than maybe in suburbs. Okay, I know it's an ignorant statement, but that's where you see the approach where they point to say, I want that and I want that. So that model of walking in, people picking up stuff and coming to pay, it might not be appropriate in a standalone business in township, because one, I mean, we know crime is high in generally in township so if you have that kind of model, you might be at risk of people stealing from you, and then as well as product maybe getting into not being able to see what are they taking, what are they buying and stuff like that, and yeah, it can put you at risk if you don't design your production process or your operation in a way that it makes you are able to service the customers the way they want to be serviced. So you need to look at your dynamics, your location. Where are you putting it? You have to put it in a secured location where you can they can have freedom. You give freedom to your customers to walk in, do whatever that they do. They will pay. And even the type of customer profiles that they come to your shop will guide the structure that you need to put in place in terms of the operations. Okay, so if you are producing for the wholesale market, your packaging might be different. The way you design your operation process will be different because you need to supply them products in bulk compared to if you are supplying the consumer market where they buy your product individually. So the packaging will be different. So it comes with the design and the control of the process to say, the control process in this case will come to say, we only deliver if you bought, let's say, 1,000 items. If it's not 1,000 items, maybe you might have to come collect, because it's a control mechanism to make sure that you don't deliver small products or small quantities, which might not be profitable. Okay, so those are when you look at your product design and the planning and the controlling. The planning part is more important because you need to plan how much raw material are you going to bring in, how many employees do you want to employ, because without planning you might employ more employees than necessary. Then that will put a burden on your cost. Or without planning, you might not be able to meet your customer demands. So you need to plan your operations to make sure that you're producing the quantities, you're buying raw material, the necessary raw material, not under or over, and then you are supplying sufficient quantity of products that meets the demand. So your demand, you must be at that equilibrium where your demand is meeting your supply. So because if you don't plan, you might not be able to supply your customers with the product that they are looking for in terms of quantities. So, and then you might end up losing your customers. Or if you are producing more than your customers are demanding, you might have to carry a lot of stock. And carrying stock is no good because you are exposed to theft, you are exposed to your product getting rotten, you are exposed to losing money in stock, because having goods in stock is not the most efficient way to spend your money. Okay, that's on the planning. Make sure that you plan your operations the way to meet the customer demands, but it must be making sure that your operations are in the most efficient way, the way you set up your operations. All right, and then the last one in the production management, you need to make sure that you service and maintain your equipment. Right, because if you don't service you and maintain your equipment, you might experience breakdowns, might experience poor quality products. So you must have a maintenance schedule for your equipment. Even if you are a service business, you might not have heavy equipment, you might have printers, and if they are not serviced, they might let you down during the most important process where you are printing material. You're supposed to go facilitate a lesson and you need to print material, and because you're not maintaining your printers break down. And then if you are like employee driven, maintenance will be making sure that you look after the welfare of your employees. You have your employee wellness. You make sure that they have access maybe to medical aid, medical support. You make sure that you create a conducive and healthy environment that they are operating in, to make sure that they are always operating at the tip-top conditions. They are always ready, motivated to do their job. Because if the environment is toxic, is unhealthy, that will affect long-term motivation and the health of your employees. So you need to make sure that you maintain health standard, you are compliant with the regulation, make sure that you go green where you can. to save the environment. So because you need to be conscious about this thing. So setting operation is not about just producing the product. You need to think about a lot of things. How you design it, how efficient should it be, in terms of the setting up, where should you put it? Do you put it closer to your customers or closer to your raw material? How do you design it? How do you design your product, your end product? Depend on how is it used by your customers, because how the customers use your product will influence how you design it. And in addition to that, you need to make sure that your equipment are well maintained, are serviced, they're always in good condition, so that you are able to maintain the quality product, the quality of the service that you always provide to your customers. You maintain that consistency and you don't experience breakdowns. Okay, so that is our lesson on the production process. What I want to leave with you is that you need to recognize that operation is the key. It's key to your success. So you need to make sure that you look after it, you strategize about it, you maintain it, and most importantly, you are innovative about how you set it up. And when you're setting up your operation, make sure that it's efficient when it comes to resources. In terms of speed, you design it in a way that you will produce products in a most efficient and speedy way. And then in terms of the setup, make sure that your employees, make it easy for your employees to operate. So you're going to save time, you're going to save resources, and the product that you're producing will be consistent. If you think, you apply your mind when you are setting up the operation, and you make sure that you are strategic about it, you find innovative way to set it up. So that is our lesson on the operation process, and I hope you'll be able to implement some of the strategies that we spoke about in your venture. I thank you.